What is going on, family? We are back getting into some more of the Ren chapters today. And again, I'm sorry, guys. It's been a minute since we did chapter 3. Not as long, I think, between the breaks as the last time, but we're back in chapter 4. We're going to keep this train running. I promise this time. I promise we're not going to keep it going. We are not going to keep this dragged out. We want to get through this. We want to get through this in a pretty good succession. So we're going to drop these a lot more frequently. I promise you. I promise. Chapter 4. Let's not waste any time. Let's jump into it. I'm sure we're going to have a lot to talk about today.
Cool. During the year I spent living back with my mum, I was leaning even more heavily into scouring the internet for answers. It became like an obsession. Most people my age were watching porn. I was on PubMed learning about mitochondria. I educated myself in things like methylation, the building blocks of mitochondria, various immune cells and their functionality, and which supplements could help theoretically bring about homeostasis in my body. I taught myself of the various pathogens that could lead to the symptoms I was experiencing. Around this time I started ordering medical test kits from private medical facilities. I had a eureka moment when, after posting some poop in a tube to a lab in London, I discovered I had an amoeba and another more benign gastrointestinal parasite called Blastohominis. Both could plausibly lead to systemic pain and fatigue. Upon researching the best course of action, I found this doctor in New York who was a world-renowned specialist in treating parasites. Return flights to New York, booked far enough in advance, were a couple of £100 back then. The treatment itself was pretty cheap. I was in no way in a strong financial position, and neither was my family, so I did what I always do when I needed to get money. I wrote and recorded some songs from my laptop from bed. One about getting to New York to find a cure. I sold a modest amount of digital copies to my Facebook friends and my friends and family, just enough to afford a trip. During this time, my symptoms had gotten a lot worse, so the entire visit was a bit of a blur. I remember sitting in a waiting room and struggling to find an inch of wall space that wasn't taken up by the countless medical qualifications and the diplomas attached to it. I half expected the walls to start bragging about their Ivy League connections and debating the latest medical research while us mere mortals waited to be called in. When I was finally on the doctor's table, I was told to take off my clothes and put on a blue disposable paper robe. An old man in his 80s hobbled in, pulled on a medical glove, and proceeded to cover his finger in Vaseline. My heart sunk. I was pretty sure I knew what was coming next. I suddenly wished I'd experimented more with my ex-girlfriend. I didn't want to lose my backdoor virginity like this. He could have at least done me the courtesy of putting on some Marvin Gaye and lighting some candles, but instead I lay in
Oh my god, the fact that he's doing this is too funny, fam. Oh my god, this is too funny. He turned on the Marvin Gaye and he hit him with the music too.
He could have at least done me the courtesy of putting on some Marvin Gaye and lighting some candles, but instead I lay in uncomfortable silence on a brightly exposed operating table, while a firm-handed, overqualified old man inserted his index finger forcefully into my anus. He never wrote to me afterwards. I felt used. Nonetheless, I was officially diagnosed.
Oh my god, that's the funniest thing. It's so funny that he put that in here because, like I said, this whole everything with these chapters so far has been so serious where there's not been a lot of humor. So him just making light of this particular little section, just like this little 30 seconds, is so fucking funny because I can't get over how hysterical that little segment and everything about that is. So fucking perfect. When he kicks in the music, when he cuts it off, all of it. Everything that he wrote, he never wrote me afterwards. It's so funny.
Diagnosed with a parasitic amoeba and given a course of heavy-duty antibiotics to take. I believe it was paramomycin and secnidazole. After the course was finished, I pooped into a tube again, and they confirmed I got rid of the parasites. The constant internal techno raves and gurgling which usually plagued my stomach ceased, but I felt just as crap. And on top of all of that, I started becoming allergic to everything. And I mean fucking everything. The antibiotics had triggered some sort of massive food intolerance reaction. Whenever I'd eat certain foods, I'd get hit with a sudden hangover-like feeling, and my face would swell up. I'd later learned this was something called MCAS, and it was triggered by the antibiotics. This was the first time I felt the crushing defeat of pinning a lot of money, hopes, and time into a treatment only for it to make me worse. I'd felt it to a small degree with every failed herbal protocol, every antidepressant that gave me side effects, but this was on a much larger scale. I almost felt guilty and full of shame for not getting better. I told my friends and family that this was going to be the thing that cured me. Not only did it fail, but I was now unable to tolerate basic carbohydrates, fruits, sugar, high histamine food, dairy, grains, without feeling terrible. I felt pretty crushed about that. Despite this, some tenacious part of me had a perseverance that didn't want to stop looking for answers. I was obsessed with trawling the internet. I strongly believe if I didn't have that tenacity to keep looking after every defeat, I'd probably be dead today. After about a year of living with my mum in North Wales, I got the itch, and I decided that I'd make a bold move to Brighton. Most days I didn't really have the energy to do much other than short walks, but I had a friend over there who lived with Emmy for years. It felt like a safe space, a place of understanding. Being a 23-year-old living with his mother didn't feel very cool either. He had a free room going, and he was a legend. I desperately craved my own independence. After going through the heartbreak of losing love and losing the exciting career opportunity, I needed to feel like I wasn't just sitting in the tomb in Wales waiting for death, even if it was a struggle. I made the move. It was a really nurturing space, and it was full of the lunatics of Brighton who would come and go. I was still living in a thick haze, but I was meeting people who weren't judging me for it. With this safety, I was slowly finding my personality again. Despite the comfortable environment, it seemed my symptoms were only getting worse. I started having pretty constant panic attacks. The first one felt like a heart attack. I'd never experienced a panic attack before, so I wasn't familiar with the symptoms. My whole face went numb, and my heart felt like it was about to beat out of my rib cage. I panicked and I phoned an ambulance. They put me in the back, they took all my vitals, and they told me I wasn't dying. I felt disappointed. These attacks would happen pretty habitually every week or so. My symptoms of derealization seemed ever increasing.
I don't know. I'm sure a lot of you out there have ever have probably had or experienced or have suffered from panic attacks before. But it's one of those things where it's like no matter how much you think that you know yourself, and no matter how much control that we all think that we have over ourselves, like that's why the word attack I think is in there, right? Is because it is an attack basically on your nervous system and your brain where you really cannot function. I think about there's been a few times in my life where I've had panic attacks in front of people. And when I've had those, they've been some of the most like traumatic, embarrassing moments. Now, when I say traumatic, I mean by traumatically embarrassing. It's quite embarrassing. You know what I mean? Especially like when someone else sees you go through that. And I know it's one of those things that a lot of people, and even the people in the moment, would always tell me, and probably tell you all out there the same thing, where it's like, it's nothing to be embarrassed about. But it doesn't stop the embarrassment. It doesn't stop the fact that, like, you know, in a moment, you really can't control yourself. And you really are almost like paralyzed in some situations where, like, I remember having this one time where I remember just crying hysterically about something that did not matter at all. And I knew how much it didn't matter. But it was just like eating me up inside, where it was like my entire world was crumbling over like this very minute thing. And I remember like crying in the middle of that conversation and being like, I know that this doesn't mean anything. Like and that's the embarrassing part. Whereas like I said, you're almost paralyzed because you're in a moment, so you can't control yourself, but yet you feel so strongly about something and something somehow, some way. And a lot of time, and I think from what I understand of this, is that it's basically your body's way of protecting yourself. That you're so overwhelmed that basically that's what it has to do, is basically like you're giving yourself a panic attack to basically almost protect yourself from what the fuck is happening. And the science behind all of that, and just the study of all of that, and just really like getting into all of that is just really fascinating. And it's just, it's one of those things where, like I said, like, you know, for as someone who has had them and has them from time to time, and when I think about anybody else when they talk about those things, I'm that same person where I'm like, no, it's totally okay. Like, you know, it's nothing to be embarrassed about because it's not anything you could control. And I think a lot of times people think that just because what they can see that they can also understand because, well, you were fine 2 minutes ago, but now all of a sudden, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, if you're ever around somebody that makes you feel some sort of way for having panic attacks, you probably definitely need to find yourself some new people to be around, if that makes any sense. So I know that was a long side conversation about panic attacks, but I know a lot of you, especially in the Renegade universe, probably also struggle with that the same way that I do. And like I said, it's been a while since I've had one. There was about a month or so ago, I thought I was going to have one, but I was able to basically kind of calm myself down from going to that kind of position. But it gets scary, you know what I mean? Because it's almost kind of feels like you're getting pushed off of a bridge, and you don't want to go, but you're gonna get pushed anyway. Does that make sense? It's kind of hard to explain, but it's the same kind of like extreme emotions for something that is typically minuscule. You know what I mean? It's just really difficult to understand, and I think it's really difficult for people who have never had one before to really understand what that really feels like and what it really looks like when you're going through it.
Literally every week or so. My symptoms of derealization seemed ever increasing. Derealization is hard to describe to someone who's never experienced it. The closest thing I can come to is feeling like you're on bad drugs. You feel disconnected from yourself, like your soul has been vacuumed out of your body and nothing around you quite feels real. Everything has an unusual undertone and nothing feels safe. I remember one night in the first year that I lived with Ben, there was this lightning storm of torrential rain. I went outside and I stood in a t-shirt hoping I'd be hit by a bolt of lightning and it would somehow shock me out of it. Unfortunately, I wasn't on Zeus's hit list that day. This urge to be shocked back into reality didn't really leave me. I remember one day I was walking back from the shops. I found an old analog television in an alleyway that was being thrown out. I can't quite remember the thought process that led me there. I just remember feeling angry, and I decided to smash the fucking pieces out of the TV in the alley. I picked it above my head and I hurled it towards the ground. The screen cracked, but it didn't shatter like I hoped it would. I did it again and again and again until there were large shards of glass lining the street. I saw one about the size of a kitchen knife and I picked it up. It's hard to rationally explain self-harm that's not a cry for help, because this wasn't a cry for help. I'd cried for help multiple times and no one listened. The pain I felt inside my body could never be done justice with words. There's a certain horror, a certain frustration of living in a body that would never give me a moment of peace. I felt constantly alienated. I had no doctors to tell me what was going on. They made me feel like a hypochondriac. There are no combination of words in the English language that can express that pain, that can express that frustration. There's no song I could write that would make you understand. In that moment, the closest and truest way I had of communicating my pain was driving a shard of glass into my chest and dragging it across until the blood was dripping down my body. It didn't hurt very much compared to what was already going on inside of me, and it didn't really help me feel better either, but it was truth, and there was beauty in that. Adrenaline gives you a brief moment of respite, but it wasn't long until I was exactly where I started, just decorated in a little bit more blood than usual. I made sure nobody saw. I didn't want to cause any alarm. I didn't want anyone to be worried. So I cleaned it up when I got home, and then I resumed the life of the undead. In the next episode, I'll tell you the story of when I was stabbed by an ancient sword and when I met one of the most talented people that I know.
Oh, always a salesman for sure. Always the guy keeping you on the edge. He's the what do you guys call him? The king of edging. He's like, next time I'll tell you about how I got stabbed by an ancient sword. I'm like, oh, okay. Always leave me on some sort of cliffhanger like that. Always leave me on some sort of cliffhanger. yeah, I feel like everything that he kind of was just talking about and describing when it came to like feeling like a hypochondriac and not having anybody understand and the cries for help and all that kinds of stuff. Like, again, I feel like, again, that's such a relatable thing, I think, to the rest of us. Is like, I think a lot of us have felt that way in one way or the other, despite whatever the circumstances that you as an individual face and deal with in your own lives. Because everything he described, I feel that exact same way, but I never had the same experiences that he had with the illnesses that he had, right? I've just dealt with that with my own PTSD and my own depression, my own issues with insomnia and anxiety, and, you know, really just like the cocktail soup of, you know, mental health and depression. You still feel a lot of those same things. You still feel the hopelessness. You still feel the alienation. You still feel like the rest of the world is spinning in a way that you just are just kind of floating through it. Where, you know, I had a moment even today where I went outside and I'm like, man, I have not been outside enough because the world feels different. You know what I mean? A couple weeks ago on stream, we were talking about, somebody was talking about how, because it was a random day where we were doing it like 2:00 in the afternoon kind of vibes. And they were talking about how much of a beautiful day it was pretty much everywhere everybody was, right? And I'm like, yeah, it's a great day to get outside. I always encourage people, because I don't even do it myself enough, to get outside and be outside a little bit more than you do now. Does that make sense? Where like, even if you go outside so frequently, increase it. You know what I mean? Like the fresh air, the sunlight, and all that is just, it's just good for you. It's just good for your body. It's good for your health, and it's just good for your mental health for sure. And I'm definitely one of those people that can do attest that when you're stuck inside for too long, it's not a good thing. You know what I mean? Like I said, just going to go get the trash from the curb, the can from the curb today was enough to remind me that I'm like, I need to be outside more today. So it's really easy to get wrapped up in your own problems sometimes and feel like it's hopeless and there's no brighter days. And as somebody like myself who, like, I feel like I just kind of go through this constant wave of seasonal depression this way. And when I say seasonal, I don't mean like, you know, just during the holidays. I definitely mean that it comes in seasons, like a wave from the ocean, right? Where it's like one day I'll be feeling all right, the next day I'm feeling like shit, and then it's like that for a little while, and then we kind of get back up there, right? And, you know, even like today is like today, where it's like I try to capitalize as much as I can on days where I'm feeling good, because I know tomorrow could be like the complete polar opposite. And I've had quite a few people in my life tell me that sometimes they feel like I manifest that stuff. And it's like, I don't feel like it's necessarily manifesting when you just know yourself enough to know that you can know it's coming. You know what I mean? You try as hard as you can to fight it. You try as hard as you can to not live within that world of that being your reality. But it's difficult. And I feel like, you know, everything that he's been talking about in these videos is what makes him so much more relatable to, I think, the rest of us, is because, like, you know, he says a lot of the things that a lot of us feel just through his personal experiences with the things that he's been through. So I think that's what makes him so important, I think, in today's society, because there hasn't really been a lot of people who were, I don't want to say poster childs for mental health, but it's kind of probably the easiest way to describe it. And I think that he's one of those people, like, when you see and think Ren, you think he is one of the pioneers for the idea of just mental health and the idea of music helping people in that particular way. Not sure what song we're going to get into, but let's check it out.
In the next episode, I'll tell you the story of when I was stabbed by an ancient sword and when I met one of the most talented people that I know. I got tears on my sleeves, hold on, and holes in these jeans, hold on.
I haven't slept in weeks, hold on. I haven't found no peace, hold on. I get my teeth tied, hold on. And these tears run dry, hold on. Two bloodshot eyes, hold on. Two bloodshot eyes. I don't belong here, in a place where life has left me. I'm 25 going on 150. My body feels old and I'm trying to lift the weight from my soul, but it's moving against me. I've emptied out my tear ducts, I lift my middle finger up, I'm screaming fuck you to all the demons here that keep me stuck. The pain is sharp like paper cuts, I hate them much, but yes I trust. I must combust, I must blow up, I must roll this courage up. Boom, sparks fill the room, I'm feeling the rhythm I move. My soul is more worn than the soles in my shoes. Nike trainer blues, a man with none to lose. I think I lost my sanity, calamity in shoes. Poor choice maker, I rip out the pages of fate, then I roll them up like bizzle of paper. Taker, lung full of destiny, a man with no part is a very strange entity. Tears on my sleeves, hold on, and holes in these jeans, hold on. I haven't slept in weeks, hold on. I haven't found no peace, hold on. I get my teeth tied, hold on, and these tears run dry, hold on. Two bloodshot eyes, hold on. Two bloodshot eyes. Do you ever question your faith?
Everything, that's what I'm saying. I say this on every video we do a song. Is like, does he even make a bad song? Where it's no matter what it is, it ain't bad. It's never bad. It's never bad. It's never mid. The simplicity of like just the little beat in this, so sick, so sick. And then like the hold on thing, the first time he gave it to me, I was like, okay, I see what we're doing here. By the time it came back around that second time, I'm like, this is fire. You know what I mean? Where it's just like, you feel it immediately, and by the time you hear it that second time, you're like, this is it. So that hold on shit, fucking fire.
The questions I make, is this all predetermined?
I know, Johnny, you never go back far enough.
Get my teeth tied, hold on, and these tears run dry, hold on. Two bloodshot eyes, hold on, two bloodshot eyes. Do you ever question your fate? The questions I make, is this all predetermined, the script or a play? Am I the protagonist in this tragedy, or will I be the author of stories unmade? If so, I'll dip in my quill to my ink pot, keep on writing, never stop until my beating heart it flops. I'll write a whole different story. Scene one, a boy full of hope, a boy full of glory. Who's stutters, I'm up to the top. Would rather be tougher and live it smoothly like butter, but not so bitter and cut up. And so I sit up and shut up. It's like I lit up and struck up the courage never to fuck up. And now I'm feeling the ruckus, feeling the static, and now I'm feeling the flames, and now I'm feeling the strength inside the ring with my pain. My boxing gloves and my hope that I trust to bust an uppercut, cut my demons up. Boom like a tsunami, smooth like a punani, bend the birds like origami. Salvador, I be the Dali, only love like Bob Marley. Golden ticket, call me Charlie, riding Harley's Bengali. Tiger Star, call me Arnie. I'll be back. Now cut the slack, track your backs, relax, shit in the beast, and then seek it in the peace. And I'll reach the canopies, and yes, we climbing, building a brave new world inside a whole new design. And with all this fire, we burn like the sun. A new dawn is rising, a new dawn it comes. Yeah, diggity diggity down with all this corporation. They burn up the land for the greed that they run. Run deep with their roots, but their roots can be lifted. I'll be your renegade, yes, I'll make a fist kid. Try to seek truth in the kingdom of lies. A boy so lost with two bloodshot eyes. Tears on my sleeves, hold on, and holes in these jeans, hold on. I haven't slept in weeks, hold on. I haven't found no peace, hold on. I get my teeth tied, hold on, and these tears run dry, hold on. Two bloodshot eyes, hold on, two bloodshot eyes. Ha, ha, ha.
Let it breathe to him, baby.
Two bloodshot eyes. Two bloodshot eyes. Woo.
I really like how he lets like the beat just kind of like rock out there for like that last little minute and just kind of play with it a little bit with like the like just very minimal additions to just kind of letting the beat rock for the outro for that. Super fire. I felt disappointed. That speaks volumes. Yeah, that was a reference to what he was talking about. yeah, I think in terms of like this song particularly, I'm not sure when it came out, if it was around this time, if it was a placement of an older song just to tie to the video. I think I learned that in the last video, that sometimes it's just more of less like a placement of the song that was out for a while, and to kind of reintroducing the idea of it. But I think that in terms of like the specific chapter and the song that he specifically used, perfect tie together, right? Because he was talking about writing those songs about those feelings, and I feel like this was definitely one of those songs kind of like talking about going through those processes, right? That's one thing that's really dope about Ren is, like, you know, he's a great writer in terms of like writing about the emotion in the emotion. I've talked about this a lot on the channel, where I'm like, I'm not as much of a fan as the person who writes the song today about how I felt yesterday. Does that make sense? And because today I feel good, and yesterday I felt like shit. So I'm gonna write about how I felt like shit yesterday, but today is better. You can almost hear those perspectives. You know what I mean? And that's why I feel like that's what's so great about Ren, is he gives us the raw emotions within the time of feeling them. Even if it's after the fact, it's still the same pulling of those emotions from that time period. And that's what you feel, I think, each and every song with Ren, for sure. I think that's all I got for this one, guys. Again, we will be back with chapter 5 sooner rather than later. Again, we will get that out probably within, probably at least one a week until we get these chapters done. We definitely want to get more into more Ren reactions, so there should be more Ren reactions on the channel as well. Apparently, there's tons of songs that I have not even gotten into yet, so we're going to get back into those as well, so definitely appreciate that. I think that's all I got. Be kind to a stranger. Tell somebody I love them. If you haven't joined the Foxtrot family, there's always room for you.